The documentaries, fictional stories, and poems on this channel contain mature themes including psychological horror, violence, death, self-harm, mental health crises, and other disturbing subject matter. If you're sensitive to dark content, this may not be for you. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome, my restless ones. I am the Howlerist. Tonight, I want to talk to you about something that happens to you every single night. Something your brain does while you lie there, helpless, trusting it to keep you safe. You assume whatever happens behind those eyelids stays there, but it doesn't always. If you're new to the pack, I create new original horror for you every week. So why not subscribe? Now, every night you are drawn into a world of your own mind's creation. So let us explore what waits inside. I want to talk to you about something that happens to you every single night. Something your brain does while you lie there, helpless, trusting it to keep you safe. You close your eyes, you drift away, and you assume that whatever happens behind those eyelids stays there. But what if it doesn't? What if the barrier between what you dream and what is real is thinner than you think? Tonight, we enter the world of sleep, a world where your body betrays you, where your mind builds prisons and monsters with equal skill, where the dead return, where science has answers for almost everything, and I do mean almost. Part 1. The architecture of sleep. Every night, you die. Not literally, though I'll get to that, but your brain undergoes a process so radical, so complete, that the person who falls asleep is not the same person who dreams. Let me explain. When you enter what scientists call REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, your brain does something extraordinary. It becomes almost as active as when you're awake. Your heart rate increases, your breathing quickens, your eyes dart behind closed lids, watching scenes that don't exist. But here's where it gets unsettling. At the exact moment your brain becomes most active, most alive, it does something to your body. It paralyzes you completely. It's called atonia. Your brainstem, the ancient reptilian core of your brain, sends a chemical signal that shuts down your voluntary muscles. Arms, legs, hands, jaw, all of it. Locked. This is not a malfunction. Your brain paralyzes you to protect you from yourself. Because if it didn't, you would physically act out every dream you ever had. You'd run into walls, throw punches at shadows, leap from windows, chasing things that aren't there. And some people do. When this paralysis fails, a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, people have broken bones, attacked partners in their sleep, and hurled themselves into furniture, all while completely unconscious, all while dreaming. So your brain locks your body in a cage of stillness while it runs wild. And this is where the horror begins. Part 2. The prison of your own body. Have you ever tried to run in a dream and couldn't? Your legs feel like they're moving through concrete, Every step is agony. Whatever is chasing you is gaining ground, and you cannot make your body move. Or perhaps you've tried to scream. You open your mouth and nothing comes out. Or worse, the sound that emerges is wrong, twisted, a strangled, gurgling thing that doesn't sound like you at all. That's REM atonia bleeding into your dream. Your sleeping brain is sending the command to run. Your motor cortex is firing. Move the legs, now. But simultaneously, your brainstem is blocking that signal. Your dreaming mind doesn't understand why the body won't respond. So, it interprets the resistance the only way it can. You feel trapped, slow, helpless. And here's something that might keep you up tonight. Your brain chose paralysis as the safer option. Think about what that means. Your brain calculated that locking you inside a motionless body, while it plays horror films behind your eyes, is the better alternative. Better than the alternative of letting you move. What does your brain think you'd do? Part 3. The moral shutdown. Actually, science has an answer for that, and it's disturbing. During REM sleep, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for judgment, morality, impulse control, everything that makes you a civilized, functioning human being, goes almost entirely offline. Neuroimaging studies have confirmed this. While you dream, the regions of your brain that govern right and wrong, consequence and restraint, essentially shut down. What's left running the show is your limbic system, the ancient, primal brain, the part that doesn't understand society, law, or decency, the part that understands only survival. And this is why people dream of doing things that horrify them when they wake. Ordinary, well-adjusted people, your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends, regularly dream of acts of extreme violence. Studies on dream content have found that aggression is the single most common form of social interaction in dreams. Dreamers are more often victims than aggressors. But when they do become the aggressor, there are no guardrails. People dream of harming strangers, people they've never met. Composite faces built from fragments. A jawline glimpsed on a train, eyes seen in a crowd. Assembled by the subconscious into human beings who exist only to be threatened or destroyed. Finnish cognitive neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo calls this threat simulation theory. His research suggests that dreams evolved as a biological defense mechanism, your brain running survival rehearsals while you sleep, simulating danger, simulating violence, over and over again, every single night. His studies found that fear is the most commonly experienced emotion in dreams, that misfortune occurs 7 times more frequently than good fortune, that being chased or attacked is the single most universal dream theme across all human cultures. Your brain is training you to survive, and it doesn't care about your morals while it does it. Part 4. The bleed-through. Now, if all of this stayed neatly inside the dream, perhaps we could accept it. Perhaps we could close our eyes each night and trust the process. But it doesn't always stay inside. Dreams have a troubling habit of bleeding into waking life. And not just emotionally, physically. You know the experience. You dream about someone you have no feelings for whatsoever, and you wake up with a sense of intimacy, warmth, even attraction that makes no rational sense. You can barely look at them the next day. Researchers call this the emotional hangover effect. The emotions generated during dreams, genuine neurological responses produced by your limbic system, persist after waking, even when the logical context evaporates. Your rational brain wakes up and scrambles to reconcile feelings that have no basis in your waking reality. But the feelings are real. Your brain made them. Your body felt them. And here's a question that science finds uncomfortable. If dream emotions are real enough to follow you into waking life, what else can follow you? People wake up drenched in sweat from dreams of exertion, hearts pounding from dreams of terror, muscles aching from dreams of running. Your body doesn't always know the dream isn't real. Part 5. The Chest-Sitting Demon. Let me tell you about a creature that has terrorized humanity for thousands of years. A creature that every culture on Earth, independently, without contact, has described in almost identical terms. The Norse called it the Mara. The Germans called it the Alp. In Newfoundland, they called it the Old Hag. In Turkey, the Karabasan. In Japan, Kanashibari. In the Philippines, the Batibat. In Italy, the Pandafece. The details are always the same. You wake. You cannot move. You cannot speak. And there is something in the room with you. Something heavy sitting on your chest, pressing down, crushing the air from your lungs. You can see your bedroom walls. You can see the door. But you cannot scream for help. And then you see it, the figure, the shadow, the entity watching you. Cultures separated by oceans and centuries, who had no way to communicate with each other, all described the same experience. The paralysis, the chest pressure, the malevolent presence. The same creature over and over under different names in every corner of the world. Science calls this sleep paralysis. It occurs when you wake up before REM atonia releases its grip on your body. You become conscious, but your muscles remain locked, and because your brain is still partially in dream state, it projects hallucinations into your real environment. The incubus hallucination, the sensation of weight and pressure on the chest, is explained by the suppression of respiratory muscles during REM. Your breathing is shallower, restricted. Your conscious mind, now awake and terrified, interprets this as something pressing down on you, and your still dreaming brain helpfully provides the demon responsible. That's the scientific explanation, and it's a good one. But it doesn't explain why the experience is always the same. Why across every culture, every continent, every century, the creature always sits on the chest, always watches, always paralyzes. Science says convergent neurological experience. That all human brains are wired the same way, so the malfunction produces the same hallucination. But I wonder, if 1 billion different brains in 1 billion different cultures produce the exact same monster, at what point do we stop calling it a hallucination? The word nightmare, by the way, it doesn't mean what you think it means. It comes from the Old English mare, not a horse, but a demon. a creature that rides your chest in the night. The word itself is a fossil, ancient evidence that our ancestors knew this entity by name, and they feared it enough to build the word into their language forever. Part 6. The Screaming Dead. There's another phenomenon that occurs at the boundary between sleep and waking, one that's even harder to explain. It's called exploding head syndrome, and despite the alarming name, it's not what you'd expect. People falling asleep or waking up suddenly hear, with absolute vivid clarity, an enormous sound. A gunshot, a door slamming, an explosion, a scream. The sound is generated entirely inside the brain. No external source, no sound waves. Your auditory cortex misfires during the transition between states of consciousness, and your brain interprets this neural noise as a deafening bang. But here's where it becomes relevant to what we're discussing tonight. When this auditory hallucination coincides with a dream about someone who has died, when the person you've lost screams at you with a volume and clarity that exceeds anything you've heard in waking life, the experience is devastating. People report that the voice sounds wrong, too loud, too real, coming from everywhere and nowhere. That's because your brain is generating sound without the normal sensory filters that process real-world audio. It's raw, unfiltered neural noise shaped into a voice you recognize. Or is it? Because across cultures, across centuries, a dead person screaming at you in a dream has never been interpreted as a neurological glitch. It has always been interpreted as a warning. Part 7. Visitations. And this brings us to the dead, because the dead have not stopped visiting the living. Not in all the centuries since we first began to dream. Studies, peer-reviewed, published clinical studies, estimate that between 30 and 60% of bereaved people experience some form of hallucination involving their deceased loved one. Seeing them, hearing their voice, feeling their touch, sensing their presence in a room. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Affective Disorders estimated the prevalence at over 56%. More than half of all people who lose someone close will, at some point, perceive them again. Science explains this through the lens of grief. The brain is so attuned to the presence of a loved one that when they're gone, it continues to expect them, to look for them. And sometimes, especially in the hypnopompic state between sleep and waking, it fills in the gaps. It generates the presence it's searching for. Neurologist Oliver Sacks wrote that losing someone creates a sudden hole in one's life, a hole that the mind somehow must fill. And that explanation works, for most cases. But then there are the cases that don't fit so neatly. The committed atheist who sees their father-in-law standing at the foot of the bed on the night he died, and cannot, will not, deny what they saw, even though it violates everything they believe about the world. The skeptic who wakes to a voice so clear, so real, so present, that they answer it before remembering the person who spoke has been dead for years. 2/3 of those who experience these encounters describe them as helpful, comforting, as if the deceased was communicating something specific. I'm fine. Don't worry. Let go. Science says grief hallucination, pattern recognition, a brain-filling absence with expectation. But I notice that science doesn't address the ones who didn't believe, the ones who had no expectation, no framework for what they saw. The ones who, against every conviction they held, experienced something they cannot explain and refused to pretend they didn't. Part 8. Those who saw what was coming. On October the 20th, 1966, a 10-year-old girl in the Welsh village of Aberfan woke up and told her mother about a dream. She said she'd dreamt she went to school, and the school wasn't there. Something black had come down all over it. 2 days before that, the same child had told her mother she wasn't afraid to die, that she would be with her friends, Peter and June. The next morning, October the 21st, a mountain of coal waste above the village collapsed. 500,000 tons of debris poured down the hillside and buried the Pantglas Junior School. 144 people were killed. 116 of them were children. The girl, Errol Mai Jones, was among them. She was buried in a communal grave between Peter and June, exactly as she'd said. Psychiatrist John Barker traveled to Aberfan and placed an appeal in the London Evening Standard, asking anyone who'd experienced a premonition before the disaster to come forward. He received 76 responses. He discarded the vague ones. He verified the rest, demanding that each person provide witnesses who could confirm the dream or vision had been shared before the event occurred. Multiple people passed his verification. People who had dreamed of black mountains, of children screaming, of schools that weren't there. None of them had ever been to Aberfan. None of them had any reason to dream about it. Then, there's the case of Abraham Lincoln. According to his friend and bodyguard, Ward Hill Layman, just days before his assassination, Lincoln described a dream in which he wandered through the White House, hearing mournful sounds. He entered the East Room to find a covered corpse on a platform, surrounded by soldiers and weeping mourners. When he asked who had died, a soldier replied, "The president. He was killed by an assassin." Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater on April the 14th, 1865. Surveys consistently find that 40 to 60% of people report having had at least one dream they believe predicted the future. Science attributes this to selective memory, coincidence, and the law of large numbers. With billions of dreams occurring every night on this planet, some are bound to match future events by pure chance, and that's a reasonable position. But it doesn't account for the specificity. The child who named the friends she'd be buried with, the man who dreamed of a presidential assassination days before one occurred, and it doesn't explain why. In a study at Cornell University, researcher Daryl Bem found small but statistically significant evidence that human subjects could respond to stimuli before those stimuli were presented. The paper was controversial. Attempts to replicate it have produced mixed results, but the data exists, sitting there, unexplained. Part 9. The question. So let me bring this together. Every night, your brain paralyzes your body and builds a world behind your eyes. In that world, your morality shuts down. Your emotions are real. Your body responds to things that aren't happening. You run and cannot move. You scream and cannot be heard. Every culture on Earth has described the same demon sitting on the same chest. The dead return to the living with a consistency that science can explain, mostly. And some people A small, inconvenient number of people dream of things that haven't happened yet, with a specificity that probability alone struggles to account for. We spend a third of our lives asleep, a third of our existence surrendered to a process that, even now, neuroscience does not fully understand. We know what the brain does during sleep. We can map it, measure it, name its stages, but we do not know why it shows us the things it shows us. And we do not know whether everything we see in that darkness is generated from within, or whether sometimes, in that space between waking and sleep, something reaches in. Restless Reverie. A strange night of broken sleep as I tossed and turned. No matter my exhaustion, my restless mind still churned. Nothing was specific to this anxious state inside. Regardless, rest avoided me, no matter how I tried. A lovely cup of warmed milk. I hear it helps to soothe. But even after drinking it, my calm did not improve. Was I just uncomfortable? Too cold or maybe hot? Neither one the answer to this quandary that I've got. So for hours, I just lie there, staring at my walls. Till finally, at dawn it was, at last, able to fall, heavy into slumber, as then I start to dream. And I find myself in moonlight, standing near a stream. I venture even closer as I watch the water flow. So beautiful and peaceful, and my turmoil starts to go, noticing the current so gently swirling free. But I feel something watching, and I slowly turn to see. Nothing there, with sweet relief, but as I glance away, movement close, I clearly hear a piece of timber break. Scanning through the trees, I try to focus through the dark, unable to see anything. "Show yourself," I bark. Still, I can't see anything disturbing as I stare. But suddenly, another snap. There must be something there. I hear a terrifying scream as a figure starts to rise. Just meters from me stands a beast with deathly yellow eyes. It starts to growl. I stumble back as water fills my shoes. Trembling now, I watch its teeth, and salivating ooze. Deeper in the river, still fixated on the beast, afraid to lose my sight of it, in case it captures me. Up to my chest, the water now, as the monster starts to creep. As it advances backwards, ever deeper I retreat. It's almost at the bank now, as I lose touch with the ground. And as the current carries me, again, that screaming sound. Carried down the stream am I, as on the bank it stalks. Focused on its meal, I fear, as along with me it walks. This waterway, it twists and turns. The brute still follows me. The water, my protection, and I'm using it to flee. Abruptly, the river turns sharply to the right, and unable to follow, the shrieking monster fades from sight. Such comfort washes over me. My stalker finally gone. But I'm afraid it too short-lived, as my adventure presses on. Turmoil all around me now, with rocks at every turn, and I am carried faster as the water starts to churn. Spluttering, I struggle just to keep myself afloat, regretting my decision to go swim without a boat. Though deafening, this turmoil in the distance, ringing clear. The screaming of that fiend, reminding me of why I'm here. Partially submerging, I see something just ahead, where the water drops away and my heart is filled with dread. Gasping for my breath as I paddle for the shore, having only seconds till I need to breathe no more. Then, like a leaf, it launches me. I fall to my demise. Bolt upright in familiar space, I open up my eyes, heart racing as I look around to see my bedroom walls, still grasping at reality as my alertness calls. A dream, I sigh. I think not one too easy to forget. Still I question, if it just a dream, why am I soaking wet?